Good Thursday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Haramsky. This afternoon, new details about a police shooting in Minneapolis happened about 12:30 this morning at 5th Avenue South and East Lake Street. Police chief says that they got a 911 call from a neighbor about a man pointing a gun at his mother. Police say the suspect came out of a house with his weapon and refused to lower it. That's when an officer fired his gun. They say that no one was hit, though, nor injured, and that man was arrested. Developing now in Minneapolis, police are investigating after two people were shot dead within a span of just 30 minutes, just a few miles apart. The first was on Emerson Avenue North in the Hawthorne neighborhood about 9:30 last night. The second incident on East Franklin Avenue in Ventura Village neighborhood is happened about 30 minutes later. In both, police believe physical altercations led up to the shootings. Police say the first shooting on Emerson left a man in his 20s dead after a verbal argument. At least two people dressed in black ran from that scene, they say. They tell us the second shooting on Franklin may have involved a fight with a group of people. A woman in her 30s was shot and killed in that one, but police say it's unclear if or how she might have been involved in that fight.
We have had well over 330 fewer people shot this year than at the high point in 2021. So the progress continues, but obviously the progress is very fragile and there's still a lot of work to do.
At this time, no arrests have been made, and police say they don't believe the shootings were connected. Police chief is asking anyone with information on either homicide to contact law enforcement. New this afternoon, Mike Lindell is officially running for governor of Minnesota. Lindell is a close ally of President Donald Trump and is at the center of several lawsuits connected to false claims about the interference in the 2020 election. Nasira Calvi has more on this run from the MyPillow guy and who else is running for governor. Nas?
Thanks, Chris. The pillow magnate and noted 2020 election denier Mike Lindell officially announced his candidacy for governor during an appearance on The War Room with Steve Bannon. Lindell was sued for defamation in 2022 for public comments accusing voting machine manufacturers Dominion and Smartmatic of rigging the 2020 presidential election that Trump lost to former President Joe Biden. Both lawsuits ended with Lindell being found guilty, one resulting in a $2.3 million judgment, while damages have not been set in the second. The law firm representing Lindell asked to withdraw in the middle of proceedings, saying he informed them he did not have enough money to pay. In 2024, package delivery company DHL sued Lindell and MyPillow for $800,000 in unpaid bills. In the announcement today, Lindell addressed some of his priorities.
I will stand for those of you that are struggling with addiction. I will stand for you by making Minnesota's education system one of the best in the nation. I am not alone in standing for you. I've never been alone. My Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has been standing beside me all the way.
Lindell joins a crowded GOP field, including House Speaker Lisa Demuth and 2022 GOP nominee Scott Jensen. President Trump has not yet made an endorsement, but that election, Chris, is less than a year away.
All right, thank you, Naz. Got a look from our nation's capital today, where lawmakers rejected both plans for affordable health care. The Republican plan would expand health savings accounts to help people pay for some ACA plans. The Democratic plan would have extended existing tax credits set to expire at the end of the month. Right now, Congress does not have a backup plan ahead of the December 31st deadline to avoid premium hikes under Obamacare. Today, new information on ICE operations in Minnesota. The Department of Homeland Security telling NBC News ICE has arrested 400 people here since December 1st. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez rode along with ICE agents yesterday as they carried out their operations in the Twin Cities.
We started the day before dawn. That's how these operations typically unfold. I can say it was very difficult for the ICE agents to actually arrest their targets. There were several Somali, what ICE said were undocumented immigrants that had criminal histories that they didn't pan out. They would go to a location and either the suspect wasn't there and then you have to move on, or the suspect was there, but it was a difficult situation to be able to make entry either in an apartment complex, in one case where a property manager did not want them in. ICE agents, they insist that this is an enforcement operation not targeting the Somali community specifically, that it is targeting undocumented immigrants with final orders of removal. Still, critics and many protesters who we also saw saw today, especially during one incident this afternoon. They claim that this is indiscriminate and that the ICE agents are just going after whoever they can.
ICE says about 100 agents are now part of this operation in the Twin Cities. They made more than 50 arrests just yesterday. For more on the operation, you can head to our website, KARE11.com. Well, another point of contention in communities where these raids are happening is the local police presence. The most recent example, last month's confrontation in St. Paul between officers and activists where chemical irritants were used. Here's Lou Raguse with more on the role local law enforcement plays in these federal raids.
A federal raid at a Minneapolis Mexican restaurant in June first sparked the larger conversation. What is the role of local police in a federal law enforcement operation that citizens believe involves ICE?
We have a sworn duty to keep the people of this community safe. That doesn't go through a political filter.
The Minneapolis Police Department has policies and directives against helping ICE with civil immigration enforcement, as does St. Paul Police.
Take your mask off!
But activists have criticized both departments.
Eating peppers, baby.
Most recently, St. Paul PD over using chemical irritant on protesters who blocked federal vehicles.
We've heard, though, that there are some cities that would like their police officers to stop ICE from doing their official duties, and that simply can't happen because it violates federal law.
Jeff Potts represents police chiefs across the state for the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association.
What is the role of local police departments at ICE raids?
We think has a role to play to keep the peace at one of those protests.
Potts says local police do not have a role in enforcing immigration law, but departments across the state have a responsibility to prevent and stop violence when tensions rise.
They're really there to help keep their community safe from people who might come into those protests and try and do harm to people or assault the federal officials, assault other protesters, and really local law enforcement should be there to help keep the peace.
With the amount of tension at these operations, Potts says local chiefs hope communities accept that their police will be present and disperse crowds if needed to prevent escalation of violence.
I think you can expect that law enforcement is going to try to control that situation by removing those people who are responsible for those types of activities.
Local leaders such as St. Paul Mayor-elect Kaylee Herr have called out ICE officials for identifying themselves as police, a move she hopes will maintain the trust in local police even if bystanders don't trust the ICE agents. Meanwhile, Minneapolis leaders are sounding off after a U.S. citizen of Somali descent says that he was detained by ICE agents. 20-year-old Mabu Shir stood with the Minneapolis mayor and police chief yesterday to denounce the agents' actions and share video of his arrest. Mayor Fry calling that act a violation of the Constitution and that he's working on a legal strategy to combat these actions while still supporting the Somali community. Chief O'Hara said he understands the job of federal law enforcement, praising targeted and lawful arrests, pushing back instead on their methods, calling them random and questionable.
Things could be well planned beforehand, both for the safety of law enforcement as well as for the safety of people in our community. And clearly, a use of resources that doesn't appear to be getting a return on investment.
New information now on a lawsuit yesterday. The U.S. Department of Justice is suing Minneapolis Public Schools, accusing the district of discriminating with its teacher hiring and retention. The lawsuit alleges MPS, in its bargaining agreement with the teachers union, gives teachers of color preferential treatment. It says the district considers race before seniority when it comes to staff reductions. And it alleges, the lawsuit that is, that groups like the Black Men Teach Fellows are offered benefits that women and non-black teachers are not offered. We reached out to the school district and the superintendent, who told us that they do not comment on pending litigation. Right now in Washington state, a state of emergency for potentially historic flooding there. Officials are advising about 100,000 people to evacuate due to the heavy rainfall, the flooding, and the mudslides there. The governor saying some rivers could reach historic levels. Forecasters predict dangers will continue into tomorrow.
This is what a lot of people in Western Washington are having to deal with: flooded streets, homes, and businesses. In fact, the businesses on this street are all flooded. We talked to one business owner who said he's at least under 2 feet of water. He was here to watch as that water rose. He tried to get everything out, or as much as he could, out of his business, but says that at this point, all he can do is wait and hope that the water doesn't reach his power outlets and everything else that he's trying to keep out of the water. Now, we know that right now, 5 million people are still under flood alerts. The governor, of course, declared a state of emergency, activated the National Guard, and even though the intensity of the rain could decrease throughout the day, the concern remains the rising rivers in this state, because what we are seeing now is the effects of those rising rivers, but maybe outside of the riverbanks. Officials telling people to be ready to go at a moment's notice. We have seen crews working around the clock. There were some rescues and some people who had to be told to leave their homes. Others are still under those evacuation warnings, but nonetheless, officials just telling people to be ready to go at a moment's notice, to be careful when driving. There was at least one mudslide yesterday, portions of the highway closed. So officials just telling people to be vigilant, to be on high alert. Because the rivers have not crested to their highest potential yet, people still need to be on high alert. Back to you.
Stick with us. We got more news and weather coming up after the break.